what you're seeing here is the first presidency in a long time reclaim the authority as it's articulated in the Constitution and in precedent from the judicial and legislative branches. And because this is the first time in a long time that's happened, even for people who voted for Trump and like Trump, it might seem a little weird. I mean, maybe he's doing something wrong. He's just doing something that's right that hasn't been done in a long time.
One of the things that strikes me as being right, as I understand the spirit of the separation of powers, is that the founders understood that power corrupts absolutely, and so they set these three branches against each other. And one of the things that assumes is that they're gonna grab power. The Congress is gonna, well, the Congress has managed to not do this very well, but the courts, the president and the Congress, the legislative branches, will vie for supremacy, and that even Supreme Court rulings ultimately will then get kicked back into the legislative process, and so there is no final answer. But the assumption is, I would think, more or less what President Trump is doing, which is to say, no, I'm going to push this to the limit, and it's up to you guys to push back on me. But the notion that this is some supreme violation of the norms of our republic or democratic, but our Republican order, small r, I don't understand where that's coming from, if you're being honest.
Yeah, it couldn't be further from the truth, although I think I know where it's coming from, and I'll try to steelman that in a minute. But if you read or reread the Federalist Papers, which are the greatest, most, I think, convincing essays that explain what you just did, which is that the three branches don't just coexist, they're vying for as much authority as possible for the express purpose of diffusing power so effectively, but rather inefficiently, that the people can go about their lives. And if Hamilton and Madison were sitting here today, and admittedly, I am very fond of both of their political philosophies, they would say the system relies on, as Hamilton said, a vigorous executive who would challenge not the norms, the custom, the law, but challenge all of those members of Congress, challenge all of those members of the judicial branch from saying, we're more numerous than you, and so we outweigh you. No, he's or she the only elected person on a national level.
Right.
The founders meant something by that. Where does the analysis come from, the opposition come from? It comes from a century of American left of center folks trying to change that, starting with capital P progressivism and continuing all the way through, today, where the radical left, I think, does not even want sovereign states to exist within the United States.
I mean, I think about this. It's become not just a philosophy; it has become a culture. Trust the experts, trust the science TM, which is, of course, like a fundamentally anti-scientific. It's like you're instantly a crank if you say trust the science. If you even just say the science without trust, you're not really in the realm of science anymore. But I think about Woodrow Wilson. He was sort of the original Claudine Gay. He was an Ivy League professor who had a real disdain for the public. He also happened to be like a racial essentialist that resegregated the federal
One of the worst
government.
ever.
So he sucked real bad. He comes in, and this seems like this is the, talk about the capital P progressive movement. This notion that we have betters who are the experts, who should get deference and can design the way, the structures in which all the rest of us will live. And how dare we elect someone that says, what are you talking about? No, none of that stuff. That seems like the battlefront. I mean, that seems like what that, the like horror of Kara Swisher and Steve and Scott Galloway is rooted in. Like, we're Ivy League types. We're smart. We're smarter. And I know Scott came from humble beginnings, but he's lost the plot. He's in Aspen Ideas Fest land now.
It's always a bad sign. Yeah, this is personified by Anthony Fauci, who would be so comfortable in Woodrow Wilson's administration. And
including the eugenics
yes,
favoritism.
I mean, the whole thing. I mean, Fauci and this whole group, they really are traitors to self-governance because they're holding out their credentials. They're holding out their supposed expertise. They're holding out what they see as a fact, which isn't, and that is that technocrats are more important than common sense, or just more important than people with degrees from other places who happen to understand the scientific method and therefore know when you say trust the science and it doesn't include challenging a hypothesis that you're, of course, not doing science.
One of the things that this points to is the question of what in a civilized society our relationship with expertise should be, because I think there is a little bit of a danger. I can feel it in myself, because at the end of the day, if I wasn't doing this and being all hoity-toity with history talk, I would probably be happiest swinging a hammer on a construction site. Personally, that's like the other route I would take. The To do things well, you need to have people who know how to do them well. The government has been charged by we the people with doing a bunch of things, some of which involve a fair amount of expertise, like running half of spending on all of healthcare. I don't like that, but that's the reality we're in. So how do you have a federal government that is charged with doing a bunch of stuff that requires expertise, but all of the people in it turn over every 2 to 4 years, because of the political power that I think we're agreeing is justified to say, no, fire all these people. They're a bunch of lefties, fire them, and then at some point we'll get some left winger back in the office, and it'll be like, all right, academia, give me your unwashed masses to fill these agencies back up. How do you think about what is like justifiable long-term expertise in the federal government?
Well, the first step is to recognize there is a huge difference between expertise and technocracy. And so we want expertise. We want professional competence. But technocrats are people like Fauci, I mean, really personified in this generation by Fauci, who say that they don't just have expertise, which he clearly has, we're not challenging that, but that his expertise is of such a special realm, and he's been given sort of a magic ring to tell us how to completely live our lives. And as if that weren't bad enough, if that weren't arrogant enough, this is the real telltale about the difference. A technocrat doesn't want to be challenged. They're not comfortable, ironically, being engaged in the scientific method, whereas the nature of developing expertise, whether in your field or mine, is not just a level of comfort, but rather embracing being challenged so that you can test the scientific method so often that you finally get to the point, think about the Manhattan Project, where you've got scientific perfection or near perfection. All of that to say that if you think about what Trump and Vance are doing with the administration, they're not getting rid of expertise or competence in the government. They're getting rid of radical left ideology, which is, when combined with expertise, creates this technocracy. I should say, though, to be fair, that technocracy can and does exist on the center right as well, for the same motivations. And so again,
Give me an example of that. What do you mean?
I remember during the COVID days, I was back in Texas. I was asked by Governor Abbott to serve on his task force to reopen Texas. And one of the people, I'll just name names, I constantly butted up against was Scott Gottlieb, who's FDA director, total statist.
Now
He is
isn't he a Pfizer board
technocrat.
member
Yeah,
now?
I mean, it says I don't ever intentionally want to engage in ad hominem. I don't mean it this way, but substantively, this man is conflicted and compromised and a technocratic jerk who I can tell you firsthand in these conversations didn't like being challenged by a lowly historian. Now, he's forgotten more about his area of science than I will ever know, but I'm not a dummy. And I was asked to be on this task force to ask questions, and he didn't like it. And it's because it's all about power. It's not about actual competence. And so actually, I think what you're going to see is not only the continuation of career employees over 10, 20, 30, 35 years. There's not going to be this turnover, 2 or 4 years of all federal employees, but you're going to see those whose expertise has been suffocated by the technocrats actually blossom.
If you like this clip, you should check out the full video and all the other great content we've got at Dad Saves America. So be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and ring that bell so you won't miss our new stuff as it drops each week.